out. And this whole mad idea that anyone can say, I'm now a woman and enter a single sex space. I mean, we've been having this conversation for a long time. It's just ghoulish. It's frightening. And then preventing women being able to talk about it is a bit rich from the same government.
You got a license for them thoughts, mate. That's really what it is. They'll come break down your door for the simple thing of saying, listen, dude, you put on a dress and lipstick, you're not a woman. You cannot claim to be a woman. You got something dangling between your legs, whether you're pre-op, post-op, inter-op. I don't care what it is. Women have certain things that a man will never have, like a period, like giving birth. This is nature. There are two sexes. They're not more than that. But in the UK today, you will have a battering ram breaking through your door to arrest you for simply stating biological facts. How has the UK slipped this much? I mean, listen, this is weaponization of government power against the citizens in order to usher in, I don't know, surveillance, police state, ultimate control. What do you want to call it? Because this is not, we were talking about this in the private community. This isn't ineptitude. It's not that these people are unqualified or stupid. They know exactly what they're doing. They're feigning being inept at their jobs. Meanwhile, all the laws that are getting passed are eroding civil liberties. And it's happening on a global scale in the West. This is what's frightening. It's not like one country's going off the rails and going mad with the woke ideology and whatever progressive ideals they're trying to build into this new world where you will own nothing and be happy. But it's happening to the West in general, in the United States, all over, in Canada, Australia, everywhere in the West, all the Germany, France, Sweden, blah, blah. It's not just one nation. It's all nations all at once pushing the envelope of wokeness. This stuff is crazy. Can you imagine telling a woman that you will go to jail if you say only women are real women, men can't be women? Can you...
Who now want to turn around and say misogyny, there should be a misogyny extremism law. Now, what I don't understand is for a long time now, and we've seen some of the things that you've had to face, which is actually basically brimmed over to physical threats and threats of violence and death threats and all the rest of it. All of those people on the other side shouting and spitting at you should have been lifted by the police a long time ago, but they seem to get away with it. And yet what comes out of their mouth is usually absolute unbridled misogyny. So how, dear Labour, are you going to make it that, you protect your trans community and do the whole trans rights matter dance, and then at the same time say, oh, well, but we're going to outlaw misogyny? They're going to end up with a real big problem when it comes to the hierarchy of victimhood, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think what will end up with women being accused and charged with misogyny hate crimes for acknowledging that men can't be women. I recently had a woman phone into my TERF talk, and she talked about asking for a chaperone, and the person that came in to chaperone when she was having an intimate exam with a consultant was a man calling himself a woman. So she then ended up in a situation in the NHS with two men in a room, and one of those was supposed to be a female chaperone. So if she raises that as an issue, let's say she decides to name the hospital and the consultant and everything, she could be guilty of an extreme misogynistic hate crime. It's nuts.
That is absolutely balmy. So a woman protecting the safety of women could be accused of hating women. I mean, that is just, it makes no sense. Nothing about the 21st century makes sense when it comes to this department. I mean, I do.
And they want us to start families and raise kids in these societies. Imagine that. Imagine the statement she just said.
I think when it comes to these sort of like grim little keyboard warriors sitting in their mother's basements or whatever, the incel community, that needs to be dealt with, because that is just really horrible and grotesque. But there must be a whole raft of legislation in place already that when people are joining little groups...
Freedom is a slippery slope. When you censor speech, it'll eventually turn on you, because who deems what offensive and what extreme? So you're saying extreme misogyny. I told you guys, extreme to who? What are the parameters for that word extreme? Now it's going to be, again, it's turned on women. Do you see? I told you guys before, a few episodes earlier, that the biggest losers in all of this will be women. They're the ones voting for their own demise. Women have voted these liberal policies in, these liberal politicians, all these ideologies of welcoming with your legs spread open, all these ideas and all these migrants, and all of this legislation has come back to absolutely wreck you. You can't even say wearing a dress doesn't make you a woman, because now you will go to jail. By the way, under and potentially the extreme misogyny charges could be charged as inciting terrorism. If enough women, imagine if enough women are out there talking about this, form a group, say we're protecting women's spaces, they get large enough for enough influence, that could be deemed a terrorist organization. I want you guys to think about this right now. Future terrorist organizations in the UK could be comprised of a bunch of Karens that simply want to protect their daughters and have a safe space when going to the bathroom or being examined by a doctor. These are your future terrorists of the UK, and coming soon, potentially Australia, Canada, all these other Western nations. Wild. This is where we are in the West. I want you guys to pay attention when you're planning out your future, where you're thinking of planting roots, where you want to start a family, and the systems you want your kids to be grown into, educated by, and now apparently indoctrinated by. Wow. They called us the misogynists. They said we were extreme. They shut down men's forums for simply guys talking about whatever it is that they wanted to blow steam off of because it had actionable potential, right? Like the red pill and whatever, probably incel forums and all this. 99.9% of these guys are absolutely harmless, just needs a place to vent. But now we're getting to the point where venting itself is a hate crime or extreme misogyny, and you will be sentenced to prison while they let out the murderers, the assaulters, and God knows who else out of prison to make room for a memer or a dude blowing his stack. Now women too, by the way. Imagine all the women's rights groups will now be considered terrorist organizations. Why wouldn't they be? Most of the women's rights groups are trying to protect women's spaces from the trans ideologies. This is wild.
Saying, I know, go and, perpetrate awful things.